my Sami Rollama. Today we're going to go through the basics of Questback Essentials. I think this should last about 40-45 minutes, so it shouldn't be too long. What we're going to be doing today, we're going to cover all the basic functionalities of the software, which should then enable you to compile surveys and distribute them to participants. The main point of the reporting section will also be covered, so lastly we're going to have a look at the actual reporting as well. Like I said, we're going to go through the system, so we're going to have a look in general first, how you sign in, how you navigate through the system, etc. And then we're going to spend the most of the time with building a new survey, so the survey process. I'm going to run you through that. And lastly, I'm going to go through the final preparations for your survey before publishing, and then publish it, and then go have a quick look at the reporting as well. So without further ado, to be efficient, we might as well start having a look at the actual tool itself. If you ever forget how to log in or where to log in from, all you need to remember is Google Questback Essentials, and you should then get a login page link with which you can then log in with. I've already logged in, so I did that earlier already. So this is the first view that you're always going to get when you actually log in. So you have your activity overview. You can also call this sort of a shortcut view, so you can go to your work history, you can start creating a new quest immediately. You have different sort of shortcuts to different places. You can go and view some responses that you've lately had to quests or surveys. You have your active quests, etc. This is a view that also contains current sort of relevant information, so any news relating to Essentials, for example, will be displayed here. You can customize this screen as well. As you can see, there are crosses to each section here. You can get rid of them if you want, get rid of different sort of boxes. You can switch them around, move them around, so you can customize it a little bit as well. And if you removed something that you didn't want to remove, you can always, of course, reset your layout from here as well. There's a new button. There's a button for creating a new quest or new survey here immediately, either from scratch or from a template. So there are ready-made templates for different kinds of surveys. So customer feedback, for example, you have different sort of templates that you can choose from here. And you can then get some examples readily translated to a few languages. So basically it's English, Finnish, Norwegian, Swedish, and you can then create and start modifying the template. We have three different sections here: activity overview, quests, and contacts. Quests is where most of the work is actually performed, so it contains all your surveys, your folder structures, your reporting, everything like that. Contacts, you can certainly add your respondents to your contacts. So if you want to create a group of recipients that you're going to be using regularly, you can use contacts to do that. So test group, for example. Oops. We can do that, and then we just add the email addresses belonging to those contacts, and you can then reuse that sort of contact group list. In the top right corner, you have a menu. If we go there, first of all, of course, you can get to our web page. You might have a separate sort of NPS section there. Then you'll have your own details, of course, behind your own name. So you can set up your username, change your password, the usual stuff, change your personal settings, country, etc., etc. So those are your own settings, and then you will have account settings as well, just general account settings, nothing really that interesting there. You can get your user listings for your for your account. And if you're the main user, the sort of super user, admin, whatever you want to call it, you can also go and add and remove users, deactivate them from here. If you've got normal designer rights, then you can see the listing, but you can't make any changes to the users, of course. Also, if you're an admin, you can group users to make user groups, which you can then, use to when giving rights to different folders. So managing rights is a bit easier if you combine users into groups. We have our media manager here as well. So this is where you can load up your files if you want to, pictures, things like that, if you want to display them later in your survey. So you have upload file, or you can even link media from a web page if you got the rights to do that. So this is sort of a media repository, media manager. It can also be accessed straight from the survey or the quest itself, so we can have a look at that later. We also have a theme manager. You can create themes for your surveys. So you have a bunch of ready-made themes here already, and you can also create your own, either for the surveys or the quests or emails or reporting. So I'll just, as a quick example, I'll just choose a new quest theme. So you just basically, you can choose several different types of, appearances for your survey. So if for example you want to change the background, you have your background color, you have your background image here, how it's aligned. Then you can go through all the font types, what kind of fonts do you want to appear on the survey, and several different things really. So if you're interested, you can have a little bit of play around with that. But most companies have their own theme already, and if you're told to use a particular theme by your admin, then please do that. But certainly it is possible to edit themes. It's also possible to even use custom CSS code to create the appearance of your surveys. Okay, and of course logout is there as well. One important thing, of course, is support. You have a direct link to support here. You can go and view your support details. So you can leave a support case. You can get your support details from there, etc. So that's handy to use. We also like to receive suggestions. So if you see something that you might think that would work better in a different way, something doesn't work, something's missing, then we encourage you to leave suggestions. What could we develop with Essentials? We do have a new version coming out 4 times a year, so quarterly. So we are constantly making Essentials better. And when there are new releases, new versions, we have release notes available here. And they'll also be available, we always tell about the new versions in the activity overview when we have those news that I showed you earlier. And of course there are also video trainings, sort of short video tutorials that you can go through and watch at your own leisure. So there are quite a few instructions in English, tutorials in English, usually they last from 1 to 5 minutes perhaps. There's also an add-on here that you can use if you have Outlook as your email program. You can then sign into Essentials directly from Outlook if you download the add-on that can be found here. And there's also a user manual that you can also download onto your computer. But that's it really briefly regarding the general sort of menus here. So we might as well go into quests now. So surveys in Essentials are called quests. Once we go into that section, we can then see our folder structures. So according to the rights that you've been given, you'll see different folders which contain the surveys. If you created a folder yourself, you'll have a folder settings option here, and usually the admin, the super user, can change the folder settings for the user as well, because usually it's perhaps the main user or the admin who creates the folders for you. But you can also create your own folders. You can, even if you own the folder, you can mark the folder and delete it, which would then actually delete the folder and the surveys contained within the folder. If we go to a folder that already has surveys within it, we can also check or choose a survey, and we can then copy it, so use this survey as the basis for a new survey. So you can use existing surveys as templates as well. You can also move one or more surveys to other folders. If you choose them and move, it will then ask you where to move to. And there's also a stop button, which just means that if we have quests with the status active, like I think I do on the second page, so a published quest, I can then stop the actual quest, so no more responses will be allowed to that quest or survey. We get different kinds of information regarding the surveys. Of course, we, like I said, we have an active one, it's been published. We have drafts, so they haven't been published yet, and we might also have closed surveys here. There's one more button here, make defaults, so you can make a certain folder your default folder. So after that, if you, for example, create a new a survey request from the activity overview page, it will automatically appear in the folder. That's your default folder. As default, in the beginning, it's a folder by your own name, so that's your default folder, but you can change that if you want. And you've got your survey search options here as well, so you can search by survey name or folder name as well. As I said, our folder settings here, and these are mainly for the sort of main users. We can apply permissions to folders. We can give certain users options to access folders, or we might have groups of people. So this one is like user group 1 that are given access to this folder if I update it. We also have more templates, more survey templates here, so you can go in there if you want and have a little bit of a look and choose one of the surveys here and check it and duplicate, and then you can use this as a template for a new survey. Quite simple. The folder permissions, basically, as I said, they are folder permissions, and if you have access to a folder, you will then automatically have access to the folder, to the surveys within that folder. So you don't have sort of access rights to particular surveys, but they work on a folder basis. So with the folders, you have your folder settings, and then you can give users access or remove them. We also get different statistics regarding the surveys here, responses, for example. We can go to different areas of the survey, we can preview it, we can go to the follow-up, which I'll show you later on. We can go to reporting, distribution, or survey designer. Again, fairly simple stuff. Right now, I'll just go and create a brand new survey so we can see how that works. When you start creating a survey, you get different tabs here. And basically, it's really easy to create surveys in Essentials because you always follow the same path. Pretty much, I go from left to right. So if we go through these slowly first, or sort of one by one, we have your survey settings or your quest settings. So everything from your quest type to your quest name, introduction, thank you notes, general things regarding the survey. In Designer, you will actually create the structure of the survey. So any questions, page breaks, routing, everything like that will be created in the actual Designer. If you want to have a multi-language survey, you would do that from the languages. So you create your survey first in one language, and then you'd add other languages sort of on top of that. After that, you have distribution, where you can define who will receive the survey. If you want to use open links, you can get the open link. That's the same for all the respondents, or you can send personal email invitations. Or if you have the SMS option available to you, you'll also be able to send SMS invitations from distribution. We'll have a look at that in a little bit as well. Notifications, if you want to notify someone of your survey, different sort of aspects of your survey. I'll just check that my recording is still going, and it is. Sorry about that. Yeah, you can notify people regarding different types of answers. So let's say somebody's chosen answer option A, you want to send a notification about every answer that has the option A chosen. You can do that from here, for example. We'll have a look at that too. Finally, test and publish. So you have your validation options here. You can send test answers to surveys, and you can also publish and close your survey from here. And the last three areas, tabs, are filters, reports, and follow-up, which have to do with everything that happens after the survey has responses in it. So you can create your reporting here. You can create filters with which you can then combine results with, and follow-up just means that you have a further dialogue option to the respondents. As long as they've been sent an email invitation, you can even follow up with a particular respondent or group of respondents after the responses have been given. Okay, but yeah, like I said, it's a really easy process, and you go through it pretty much the same way every time. But we'll go through these in some more detail now. So I'll just choose a quest type first of all, customer feedback, and then give our quest a name. We are. We can then give an optional introduction to the survey if we want. We have your sort of normal editor options here. We can do several things regarding the fonts within the survey, the text. We can align it. We can create lists, and also we have our media manager here that I showed you earlier. So this is where you can actually add your pictures from as well. So there we have it. I just added a picture there. So the media manager is that icon there, which is quite important. That's what you use to add images to any sort of question box, for example. You can also create links, you can choose your fonts, etc., etc. So the editor looks pretty much the same in many sections, as you'll see in a little bit. For example, the designer, the editor, text editor, looks exactly the same there as well. You can certainly set up a thank you note for the respondents, and you can also redirect respondents upon quest completion. So if we want to move them somewhere immediately after replying, you can do that through here. You can change survey or quest ownership, so you can sort of allocate the survey to somebody else if you want. You can change the folder from here as well. You can hide the respondent identity, so make it sort of a secret, so you can't see, even if you've sent personal email invitations, you can't see who's responded or not. For example, in the healthcare industry, this is really important sometimes, and maybe with some HR surveys as well. We don't want to always recognize who the respondent is. From here, you can simply choose logos to add to the survey. So you can have your company logo set up through here for this survey if you want, or you can use the themes that I already showed you from the theme manager. We have different kinds of themes to choose from here. Or yes, we can create our own theme from the theme manager if we need to as well. Some different options regarding what we show the respondent. For example, do we show the progress bar that goes on the bottom of the survey? You can also set up an email theme here, but it's a bit more basic than the actual quests or survey theme, because sometimes, for example, if you had images, for example, Outlook actually blocks images by default, but you can certainly have a look. You can change colors of your emails and stuff like that as well. We have certain response options. For example, we can allow multiple responses per respondent. We can send a copy of each response to email addresses, etc., if we want through our response options. So quite a few different options to choose from. We can require a survey password, and also we can use SSL in our survey links, which is always recommended actually. So it's the HTTPS link. It's just additional security to the actual response link. We can also have upper limits of numbers of answers through quotas. So if you want to only allow 50 responses to this quest or survey, you can do that through quota settings. So fairly general stuff here. Through Designer, we can then start designing our survey. So what we get there, we get our sort of buttons to add our questions. So we can start adding questions there right away if you want. If we then want to a page break after question number 1, we can click on that and then add a page break. And it now shows that you actually have 2 survey pages after that, and a thank you note as well. You can move your questions around by dragging and dropping them if you want, like this. Or you can also move them up and down using the arrows. You can copy questions and you can delete questions here as well. Pretty simple stuff. Once we go into a particular, click on a question, there are several drop-down menus here, which we'll go through in a little bit. First of all, one more thing of note, there are different options here as well. You can actually might make your life easier. Sometimes you can actually even import questions from Excel if you want. You can assign scores to answer alternatives. So if you want to do tests, you have scoring here as well. So a few options there too. Once you start actually building your question, you have these drop-down menus here, which first of all show your different question types. So you have your single select questions, vertical, horizontal. You have your drop-down single select here if you want to use drop-down menus for selection question. You have your NPS question, so from 0 to 10, it all automatically calculates your NPS value. And if NPS isn't familiar with you yet, I'm not going to go through much detail of it right now, but if you Google NPS, you'll get a lot of information regarding the NPS measurement. And there's a small sort of description of that there as well. You have, in addition to single select, you have multiple choice questions. So they're the same, except you have a tick box rather than a radio button. So the respondent can make several selections. You have your priority question type. So the respondent can actually choose from the given options and put them in a particular order he or she wants. You certainly, of course, have your open answer question types. So the respondent is able to give open feedback. And then you have your different matrix question types. So let's say you want to ask several aspects of the same thing. So for example, there's a website evaluation there, and they're using the same scale: good, satisfactory, bad. You can ask several things at once rather than doing many single select questions. You can use the sort of matrix question type. It condenses the survey, and it looks better for the respondent as well. So you have single selects, multiple choice, you even have double scales. So you can, for example, ask both satisfaction and importance at the same time if you want. You also have a text grid, so you can ask for open information that the respondent can then type in. And you have a custom, so you can combine, for example, single select and open answer. We have a few more question types. We just have a date calendar question type, information text, upload file. So quite simple. You can ask the respondent to add a file, attach a file. You can make a question that is only, text or text and pictures, something that the respondent doesn't actually have to react to in any way. And there's a date calendar selection question there as well. When you've chosen question type, if you click on single select vertical, it opens up the question properties with which you can then set up the further sort of details of the question. Question text, answer alternatives, things like that are set up through here. And if you tick include additional information, you can also add pictures, longer descriptions, things like that to the actual question. The properties and the question settings that we have further down here are all different according to the question type that's chosen. So perhaps in the beginning it's worth going through, having a look what kind of options you have available here. These will become quite familiar after a while, so you can find everything that you want for each question type. But yeah, bear in mind that they're a little bit different depending on which question type is chosen. As you can see here, we have a lot less settings regarding question settings for the open answer short question than we did with the actual single select question. What I'll do now, I'll just make a really simple single select. Add a few response options. So now we have a single select question with 3 response options. That's okay. And then we have a page break after the first question. So what I might want to do is might want to ask only those respondents who have chosen response option 1 here in the first question to be able to answer question number 2 on the next page. So we have a page break here, and this might, for example, be an open answer short question. So we'll set up a routing for this question. So we'll set up some criteria. So if single select is equals response option 1, only then question number 2 will be shown. As you can see here, we can tick several response options. We can add actually combinations of response options from different questions. So we can make this quite complicated as if we want. But enough in this case to just choose response option 1. And we can now see that a routing has been applied to this question. So that's how you can direct different kinds of respondents to different questions further on in the survey For example, we might also want to choose a routing for the next question. So let's say single select, response option 2 is chosen, then we'll show that question. So there we go. 2 different routings to do 2 different questions. Really simple stuff. What I'll do now, I'll just select a ready-made template just to speed things along a little bit. For example, sales meeting evaluation. So I'll just choose that template. We can set up different options here. So let's then just sort our surveys. There we are, sales meeting evaluation. Now I have a ready-made template already, which actually contains different questions. So let's see. So we have some questions. This is just like an introduction. The first question. Then we ask different things about satisfaction, free comments, did you agree something on an action during the meeting, etc. So this is a survey after a sales meeting. So that's fine. We can preview our quest here. So there's always a preview option available. So there's a long intro screen here, and then we can see what the actual survey looks like. And the preview is actually really handy because you can see what it looks like using different devices. So desktop and smartphone, it looks really different because it actually sort of optimizes the survey to fit each different kind of screen. So the desktop, the actual preview might be really useful to try as well. So as you can see, the radio buttons, for example, are completely a different sort of size on the smartphone than they are with the desktop. Of course, because you'll be using your smartphone with your fingers, so you need larger buttons there as well. We can choose different themes here to make the survey look different if we want. There's quite a few options here, and it looks pretty good. So it fits every type of screen, whether you have a desktop, computer, smartphone, tablet, whatever it is. But we're happy with that. If we wanted to, we can now create our additional languages. So just choose this as a multilingual quest. Choose, for example, German in addition to English. And then we can start, we can even add more languages and then just do our translations. So we can copy this to our clipboard, open it up in Excel, and then just send it to the translator or add the translations, and then just click on the first sort of empty cell and add translations directly from the Excel. So that's really, really easy to do as well. Okay, so that's regarding adding your languages. And next we have distribution. So this is where you would actually add your invitees if you want to add personal invitations or SMS invitations. You would add them through here. You could get the open link, which you can then, for example, add on a web page. You can distribute it by link, and you can even change the end bit there. And you can also force to display an obligatory email input field. So it would ask everybody using the open link to add an email address before they can actually answer the survey, but that's optional. You can always inactivate that. You also have your QR codes that you can download. So survey specific QR codes or the pop-up script if you want to use this survey as a pop-up survey. So that's the open options, or you could add your invitations or your invitees. through sort of just typing them in if you want. Type in as many as you want, etc. You could import them from a file directly if you wanted to, if you have them in an Excel file, for example, or you could use your contacts, which was up on the top here, if you've added, respondent groups of email addresses, like I showed you in the beginning. But I'll just try and import it from a file directly. I'll just select my file, Essentials, there we are, and choose the right one, responding to information. So what I've already created here before is a list of respondents. As you can see, of course, they have their email address first here, but there's also other information that I already know about the respondents and I want to use in reporting. I know their company, I know their city where they're from, I know their customer segment, and I know which salesperson went to this customer. So I can have these ready in my Excel, and then I can use these respondent information fields as reporting data as well, and that's a really handy thing. So I just add the Excel, it just checks what I've added. As you can see, the mandatory email field is there, and also other filterable information: company, city, customer segment, salesperson. So these were all sort of unique response options, so it's a good idea to keep them as filterable information. I can then filter the results by company, for example. So that's all right. I had the same email address several times in the actual or the Excel file, so I'll just ignore duplicates. It's just letting me know that there's the same email address many times. Oh, well, let's see. Create duplicates. Duplicates allowed, of course. Yes. You can then invite them immediately after you publish the quest, or just add them, and I'll just add them. I'll send the invitations later. So if, for example, if I publish the quest or the survey, I can then go and check the actual respondents here, all of them, and then send the invitations later on. So I can specify a time when to send the invitations as well. But I have 8 respondents there now. As you can see, they also have some custom information here. The company, city, customer segment, salesperson is added here as well. And of course, you have sort of respondent specific information available here as well. The only thing that's missing now is the actual email message invitation. So, hi, please. Okay. There we are. So there we are, a really simple invitation text to the survey. We can also set up reminders if we want, reminder message that we can also send later on. That belongs there. Reminder to answer survey. There we are. Okay. And when to add the reminder. For example, on a certain date and a time of day as well. So that would actually send the reminders out at 12 o'clock on the 3rd of July. So that's pretty good. And we could also have a distribution log. When we've actually sent out invitations, we can actually check from here how many of them are actually delivered, if any of them are sort of bounced or didn't get through. And we can also export that information. So, for example, you can see how good your delivery of email invitations was in the end. So that can be really useful as well. Good. We can then set up notifications regarding certain types of answers. So for example, we can send a notification for every answer, or for example, if there was a lot of dissatisfaction, we might want to notify somebody. So we just choose a criteria, and who then receives the notification. Notification subject and body. So this might say that very negative response received, and please have a look. So any kind of notifications that we want, we can do those from here. Okay. Finally, before we go and have a very quick look at reporting, we can have a look at how we publish the survey. We have a validation option here. So this sort of checks your survey for you if there's something critically wrong. For example, I've not set a quest type, and I need a quest type to set here. So go back to settings and choose customer feedback, and now it's fine. So it can give you sort of red errors or orange warnings. If it gives you red errors, you need to go and fix them first. Orange warnings you can actually ignore. It might mean that, for example, you haven't specified some sort of for example, a specific thank you note, and it will just use a generic thank you note, for example. You can also test your quest here. So you had your preview, but if you want to send actual test answers, if you want your colleagues to test your survey for you, you should go to test quest rather, and copy the actual survey address of the survey from here, this long link here, and then you can send the test to your colleague. So the preview is just a preview, but the testing is done through test quest. You can set an availability for the survey when it can be answered, sort of limits if you want. And also for our purposes now, and sometimes can be useful as well, we can generate test data here. So we generate 50 test responses as we don't have any real responses. I'll just do that, and we can then go and have a look at the actual reports. I'll just create a quick filter just so you know what that means. Is that, as I said, I had those sort of respondent information ready here, and I might want to compare the results by company information. So let's just do that. So we'll just choose a new filter. We can sort of compare by value, so for example by response option, or we can use a time interval, so we can check the results or responses that have come in January as compared to the ones that have come in February. But we'll just do the value now. We'll create a really simple single condition filter. So let's just choose the respondent information, and we have 4 different options here. So I'll just create a comparison group out of every company information option that we have here. That's good. So now we have 4 different filters for 4 different companies. Good. We'll go to reports. We'll have a really quick look at a report. We can create as many reports as we want. So there's no limit on reports, no limits on the amount of surveys you can create. So it's completely unlimited. We can also have report themes. We can check different options for the actual report. We might as well we have something called live reports here, which is sort of public reports. So we can make it public and choose sort of a layout, sort of dashboard report as well. So it's a good idea to sort of go through all of these as well at some point. I'll just do this really quickly. I have an empty report. So we have a lot of different options, but first of all, we should add our questions to our report. We can add all of them or just part of them if we want. Well, actually I'll just add some of them because we have a dashboard report chosen, so it might otherwise look a bit crowded maybe. So we'll just choose 3, 4, and then additional comments, and then we might as well choose some respondent information there as well. Okay, so I've selected some questions to our report. So we have open questions here, and we have questions with response options here as well. Did you agree upon an action plan, for example, is a really sort of simple selection question. We can choose different options. We can display our sort of charts in different ways. So we have a column chart here with percentages. We might want to change that to bar and values, how much per response option, so it changes those right away. We can save, and we can then from series we can actually apply filters as well. So let's just choose one more question to add regarding different things regarding the actual meeting. Let's just choose that matrix question there. And you can change these around the order with your arrows. You can copy them, delete them. Same way you can actually do it in Designer. If you delete anything here in the report, it only affects this report and nothing else. So you can't really, delete everything permanently here. It just only affects the one particular report that you're actually working on. So we have your averages displayed here. Good. And then we could actually sort of select filters to apply to this as well. So let's see, we have a series. We can choose our value filter. We can compare company 1. So we have company 1's results here now, and we can compare that to company 2. There we go. So yeah, now if we go to display, we compare the results for company 1 against company 2. And then we could add more response options here as well if you wanted to. And let's finally have a look what the report looks like. So I'll go to preview live reports. So as you can see, we have different questions on the same report page that we can actually then share with anybody we want right away. So we have your different charts, open answers, respondent information. We have many different things on the same chart or report page here. We can go to our report settings and easily share this report through the live report URL. So we could just copy the address there and send this report via the actual address to anybody we wanted to. Of course, we can protect it behind a password as well. We do have our export options here too. So we can export our reports to, PDF, PowerPoint, Excel, Word. We can take out our raw data if we want as well. So you have our file export options there too. But that's reports summarized really quickly. I think we're getting close to an hour, so I'd better wrap up. Then finally, we have our follow-up here. So we can have a look at individual responses. We have a listing of responses here. We can have a look at individual ones. We can expand all the answers for particular respondents. And as I said, as long as we've invited them to the system, we can send a follow-up message from here. For example, if they were very dissatisfied, I might have set up a notification for them, and then I'd want to follow up on why they were really dissatisfied. So I can just set up a new case for that, and it will then start sort of like a chat. It will send an email to the respondent, and if the respondent then answers, it will sort of start up a dialogue here. But yes, I think we're just about done. We've gone through the essential system, all the way from going through the system in general to going through the survey process, and then all the way to reporting and following up the results. And I think I've taken up enough of your time already, so I hope you've enjoyed this training, and I thank you very much for attending. Goodbye.